The following video is going to be spoiling Deltarune's Part 1 and 2. If you wish to experience them blind, turn back now. It's free to play, so what are you even doing here? Go play it. Being a sequel to Undertale, Deltarune is naturally an iteration and evolution of its gameplay and story. Before I get to the story, I want to take a minute to explain why the party system works so well with the groundwork laid by Undertale. Playing Pacifist in Undertale was a game of problem solving. Your job was to navigate a menu to convince your enemies to stop fighting with enemy-specific actions, while defending your HP by dodging in a bullet hell minigame. Undertale was able to use its action button malleably, changing from opponent to opponent and keeping the gameplay fresh despite the limited move pool. But by adding party members with specific strengths and abilities, Deltarune can make more elaborate setups for the player to interact with, ranging from adding little minigames in between the menu navigation, to creating a focus, albeit linear, on strategy. Who gets healed this turn, who defends, who attacks. One of my favorite moves was to have one of my characters set up an enemy for mercy and then having another mercy them in the same turn. The party dynamic is standard for an RPG, but the party is a staple of the turn-based RPG for a good reason. Undertale leaned on what made it unique to stand out, but now it's incorporating the more traditional strengths of its genre into the formula while keeping the original appeal intact, and it all comes together gracefully. Part 2 of Deltarune further develops on Part 1's battle system in two ways. The first is through giving Susie and Raziel the ability to act. I'm not sure how I feel about this, as Chris ends up being less unique in the unit. Before Part 2, Chris was the only one who could use act and perform actions to convince enemies of mercy. Susie was the tank who could take damage and dish it out if the player ever wanted to not use mercy. And Raziel was the healer, who doubled as an alternative way to mercy enemies under the condition that they were sleepy. Chris can still perform larger, more effective actions by taking up his and a teammate's move, and the game throws enemies at you with every member's ability to act in mind, but it does somewhat tarnish Chris's position in the party. The second development Part 2 introduces is this bumbling dork. Noelle is a temporary party member, and a large chunk of Part 2 is dedicated to Chris and Noelle as a party without Susie and Raziel present. Her skill set mimics Raziel, with the only notable difference being that her normal attack stat is pitiful, encouraging use of her signature ice magic. While I think I would prefer it if Noelle had a skill set all her own, it would have been difficult finding another niche in such a tight battle system. The enemies can offer unique challenges through action and pacifism, but beyond that there's no move types or any present status conditions besides drowsy. It's a simple, small-scale RPG that squeezes as much depth as it possibly can. The only untaken skill set I can imagine is a character who specializes in buffs and debuffs, or maybe a character who specializes in defense and TP. But seeing how she doesn't stick around and she's never in your party with Raziel, it's not even necessary to make her unique from everyone as long as she's unique to Chris. Regardless of her moveset, there is one major positive in Noelle's inclusion: having a new personality to bounce off the enemies, locations, and characters. The party setup isn't just an upgrade in mechanics, it also plays to the strengths of Toby Fox's style of storytelling. Funny, wholesome, character-driven dialogue is what made countless people fall in love with Undertale, and it managed to do it with a silent protagonist. The party members not only create for a larger volume of possible dialogue to experience in combat, but they also allow for defined personalities to bounce off each other rather than a whimsical wacky cast bouncing off of an unflinching protagonist. It puts a smile on my face to see Susie's disregard for what is proper next to Raziel's wholesome reluctance. And Noelle is a terrified coward who just wants to get home safely. Noelle's inclusion as a temporary party member also raises a question: who's next? Chris, Susie, and Raziel are probably going to stay the main trio for the majority of Deltarune, but who else will we get to team up with? Alpheus? Lancer? Sans? God, please let me fight with a team made up of Sans and Lancer. That's all I want. There's already a large cast of characters to pick from, and who knows who we'll get to meet next. Everything I've described so far applies to only half the story, the pacifist side. But as is made clear in Part 2, genocide is back, baby, but it's different this time, and maybe even more disturbing than in Undertale, because you're not just enacting atrocities through an avatar wholly meant to embody you, but also abusing your control over characters in order to get what you want out of them. If we want to make everyone dance and have a good time, we make them dance. If we want Noelle to attack a friendly salesman, ride with us on the Ferris wheel, or even kill her classmate, we have the power to make her do that. The game even makes us feel extra slimy about it by having us take her to an alley to buy a ring from this perfectly respectable gentleman, and having us put it on her in order to literally remove what free will she may have still had. The secret boss even feeds into this further, as even in the pacifist side of the story, we have to keep secrets from our friends and sneak around on our own in order to fight him. And in the genocide ending, we fight him alone, the only friend who comes to our aid being the one whose determination we completely stripped away. No longer are we merely attacking the characters we're supposed to love. We're now toying with their lives and personalities, and that's pretty disturbing. Bravo, Toby Fox. With 5 parts still left, I can only guess how much further we can push our dear friends. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time.